again. I hope you have had a wonderful week, but I am so excited. We actually have a guest tonight, which I don't know that we've really ever done before, is have an actual guest. But you guys know that I have been talking up this new book, What Big Lies You Have. I finished it and it is amazing. There was a point, my jaw was actually open and I had to close it. I thought I had it figured out. And a little bit I did. And then there was another twist. And I was like, oh. So I'm so excited for you guys to go check out this book. And speaking of this book, our guest tonight is the author, the man himself, A.G. Mock. Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Thank you so much for being on the show with us tonight. I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. Look.
It's the book. It's the book.
This is the uncorrected proof that you read. Hang on. There it is.
That is the one that I have. Yes. And it is amazing. And the spine is going to be super cracked by the time I am officially done with it because I have to read it and read it and read it.
Well, good. That makes me so happy to hear. I'm glad you didn't figure it out. I would have been really bummed out.
Yeah, no, it kept me guessing. Haley is here with us tonight. Hi, Haley.
Hey, Haley.
Haley is also an advanced reader. So she, of the three of us on the hearth, she finished it first and was just kind of waiting for me to get done. So we chatted a little bit about it last night. We are so excited for everybody to see it. You're still doing pre-orders on Amazon, yes?
Pre-orders wherever you pre-order your books, you can get them. So one of the easiest places is to go to my website, which is just agmock, agmock.com. And when you go to the website, you'll see my latest books, right? So this one will be right at the top. And I have several little links so that if you shop at Amazon, you can click there. It'll take you right over to it. If you shop at Barnes & Noble, there's a really cool link, actually, Katie, that not a lot of people know about called bookshop.org. And if you don't know about bookshop.org, it's a really cool way for consumers to support local independent bookstores.
That's awesome.
Because you can shop at Amazon online with ease, you can shop at Barnes & Noble online with ease, and so many other big corporate retailers. But I'm a hybrid author. I'm part indie and part traditionally published. I'm very big on supporting libraries and independent stores. So this bookshop.org is a way to do that. You go onto bookshop.org, and again, it's on my website, agmock.com. You click on bookshop.org, it'll take you to my book on that site. And then you can actually choose, like, okay, here's my local area. It'll give you the bookstores that are run independently in your vicinity. You choose the one that you would like to order it from, and you place your order. It's the same price as it would be at Barnes & Noble or wherever.
That's great.
And you would simply go up to your local bookstore, and once they got it in, and pick it up.
Excellent. So we have something I get to be a part of. You are hosting, but I get to be a part of.
Yes.
And I'm going to put that down there. It is also in the comments. So you guys have a link to go to. Tell them what they're going to find at the Square Dot site.
All right. Do you actually have the image, or should I show the box? I'm going to show the box. This is my own pre-orders. If you choose autographed copy, it's going to come in this really cool box, and you're going to see that it actually says something unusual. It says the party game for liars, which I love. I actually created a companion party game for adults, and it's played by 5 to 13 adults. And it's called the What Big Lies You Have party game. And it's a companion to the book, which is really cool. And there it is.
Just like that right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go. So if you pre-order I call it my What Big Lies You Have launch box, not lunch box, but your launch box, you get, number one, a signed and numbered first edition paperback. Which is there. You get a to the right of it, you then get a book plate which is also signed. It's like a limited edition print. On the back is a signature space, which I will sign. You get the custom bookmark. And then if you scroll down, you'll see that you then get the game. This is what the game looks like. It's actually based off of a game that was called Mafia, that was designed by a Russian student 40 years ago this year. And he did it as part of his dissertation for his sociology course at university. And it actually became a game that future generations called Werewolf. And if you watch the Traders on NBC's Peacock, there's Traders US, Traders Canada, Traders UK, Traders New Zealand, Traders Australia, and it's sort of like a party game on steroids. Traders is, but it's a lot of fun. That game, if you love Traders on NBC's Peacock, that game is actually modeled after the game Mafia, which became the game Werewolf. Whenever I found out that it was in the public domain and it was something that I could actually replicate and sort of alter a little bit and tweak without, breaking like any copyright or trademark rules, I then created What Big Lies. You have Party Game, which is what you were showing. And in essence, you have a mixture of villagers and wolves, which of course is extremely relevant to What Big Lies You Have.
Absolutely.
Inspired by Little Red Riding Hood. And you as the host would have, let's say, 10 people at your house for a party. Each one of them gets a card, which they keep to themselves. It's either a villager or they're the wolf. They get blindfolds, and everyone puts on a blindfold. The host says, okay, villagers, it's time to go to sleep. While you're blindfolded, the wolf or wolves in the pack very quietly take off their blindfold and they select one of the villagers who they're going to kill that night. So once they do that, the host says, okay, it's morning, time to wake up. And he or she will announce, unfortunately, Katie, you have been killed and dragged away by the wolves.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then you have to put your estate, which is represented in a gold coin that comes in the package. You put your estate on the table because now that is communal property. And so this goes on where each night, right, which is represented with the blindfolds, the wolves will murder a villager. Each day, the villagers have to have a conversation amongst themselves to try to determine who the wolf or the wolves are. Of course, if you have 10 people around the table, minus poor Katie, who was just murdered by one of the wolves, but now there's 9, you don't know who's a wolf and who's a villager, right? That's the key. Right. So you have to start having these conversations. And at first, it's hard and sort of guesswork. You're just saying, well, I don't know, maybe I don't care for them, or maybe I thought they cleared their throat and rustled whenever we had our blindfolds on, so they're probably a wolf. What's interesting, though, is unfortunately, it's almost like a sociological thing. And not to get too deep with it, but a lot of people will do that pile on mentality where I say, well, I think it's Frank, and here's why, because he was rustling, so I think he was probably taking his blindfold off, so that means he must be a wolf. Well, poor Frank might have just been rustling because he was just rustling. But what you'll find is that a lot of people will pile on. That's what happens if you watch the Traders. And then poor Frank will get banished to the woods, right? Thinking he's a wolf, but he has to reveal, is he a wolf or is he a villager once he's chosen for banishment? He puts his coin in the pot, and if he's a wolf, great job, then the villager's got one. Right. Chances are, though, he's probably a villager, and you probably just banished one of your own to the woods. And so this goes, where every night the wolves murder somebody, and every morning the villagers have a discussion to try to determine who the wolf is. And at the very end of the game, you either have a wolf left, a villager left, or if there's 2 people left, they will share the pot unless one of them is the wolf. If one of them is the wolf gets the pot completely.
Oh, wow. The game. Oh, that's going to be fun.
It's pretty simple. But what makes it fun is that when you're in a party atmosphere with a lot of people, number one, it gets you all talking, right? And you start to mingle. You can also do like side quests if you wanted to, which I'm not going to put in the game. I'll put in the game that you could do a side quest. And that would be, for example, Katie, if you were doing it and let's say you knew you had 10 people. Well, that would be 5 days, so to speak, right? Right. It'd be five rounds where each night a werewolf or a wolf would kill a villager. Each morning the villagers would try to banish a wolf. So 2 people per round or per day would go. So if you knew that, you could actually create like 5 side quests if you wanted to make it a little bit more fun and maybe extend it a bit longer. And that could be anything from like playing a game of beer pong to, I don't know, putting Easter eggs outside your house and saying that each egg represents a gold coin. And if whoever finds the most, maybe gets a shield so they can't be killed tonight, or you know what I mean? You can make it fun.
Yeah.
The biggest enjoyment of it is it just gets people talking.
Yeah.
Mingling
Yeah.
and yeah.
That's gonna be awesome.
Who's the wolves amongst the villagers.
So in addition to the game, in that box is also an invitation.
There's an invitation. I'm doing something I've never done before. I've done book release parties. In fact, the last book release party was a few books ago, and it was in Pennsylvania. And readers paid up to $1,000 to come and do this whole weekend with me for the launch of one of my books. And we went to the real Little Woods, which is featured in my debut novel called The Little Woods. And that was a whole lot of fun. There were about, I think, 15 of us in total. There was myself and my wife, and then 13 disciples, we called them. And that was a blast. That was about 3 years ago, I think. But people had to, it was a big event. There was accommodations included. There was meals included. We had a medium come and do a seance. Like, there was a lot happening. We had a 2-hour trip each direction to go to the rural Little Woods. So there was a reason why that cost about $1,000 per person. And still we had, like I said, about 15 people. What's really amazing is that those people have become friends. Yeah. So we all showed up as strangers, but having something in common, which was books and thrillers and something a little bit dark and mysterious. And, people took a chance to just come and hang out with 14 other strangers, but we all left like best friends. And truly, I have a ton of friends from that group. So I'm doing something similar this time, but it's not going to cost $1,000. If you pre-order the launch box, which is on my website, agmock.com, and you can click on merchandise, or if you're putting the link in your description, you can just go straight to the link there. If you buy the launch box, and it's only $39, you get the signed first edition numbered copy paperback, you get the limited edition signed print, you get the bookmark, you get the game. The game itself is, I think, going to be worth every penny, and of course the book. But you also get an invitation to come and join me in Nashville on September 19th. And I know, Katie, that you've already purchased your launch box and accepted, and you're coming.
Absolutely.
We're going to have a special VIP invite-only launch party in East Nashville on Saturday, September 19th. It'll be in the afternoon so that people can come and still go home that night if they wanted to, or they can come do the launch party, then go visit Nashville and see what else they can find to do in Nashville, which is plenty.
Right.
Yeah, that is only going to be available to people who buy the launch box, or pre-order it, I should say, from my website. Those people who then come to the VIP party will be picking up their box in person. For those who buy the box because they want the signed limited edition and numbered paperback, they want the game, they want, all the goodies, and they can still buy it without coming. The invitation is something I'm just throwing in there. So only those people who are pre-ordering the box get to come. But you don't have to. If you don't come, I will ship it to you for free. It has to be in the U.S. though, unfortunately, because customs and shipping over, international borders becomes really tricky. But if you're in the U.S. or you have a mailing address in the U.S., then you can order it from my website. And if you can't come to Nashville next week, next month, I'll be bummed that I won't see you, but I'll be thrilled that I can just ship you the launch box instead.
And then what you guys can do is, once you've read the book, you make a little video of your review, put it on Goodreads, and then it's like we were all together.
Absolutely.
So go ahead. You guys know you want this book, and you want all of the goodies that come in launch box. I mean, you can't get a board game for really much less than $30 anyway.
Right. And here you're getting the paperback. And by the way, the paperback for pre-order, which is included in the launch box, but also any pre-orders from Amazon, from Barnes and Noble, or from your local bookstore. Any of the pre-orders of the paperback also have this really cool inside colored cover, which you don't normally see in paperbacks. And once the pre-orders are over, if you are, say, an Amazon customer, once the pre-orders are over and it's released on September 22nd, the Amazon version won't have that inside colored cover. So there's a lot of reasons to pre-order it now. And the book itself is $16.50. Most games, I think, would probably be what, $25 these days, $25, $30, plus all the little goodies, and not to mention the invitation. And the invitation isn't just to come and hang out. We're going to have food and drinks, and it's going to be a blast in a really nice location, which I'm keeping quiet until the day of, unless you're invited, in which case we get a very quiet little sneaky notification about 2 weeks before. But it's going to be an awesome opportunity. I think the $39 box is probably about like $100 in value if I were to each section of it. And we get to hang out together, you and other book lovers just like you, and people who like mysteries and thrillers and something a little bit dark.
And just going to a cool little bookstore. I mean, who doesn't love an excuse to go to a bookstore?
Right, absolutely. Oh, and let me just, I know I have to run, I know you do too, but I do want to just add that from the ARCs, the advanced reader copies, or is it, there it is, advanced reader copies, if you go onto Goodreads, because you cannot put a review on Amazon before release date. Nobody can. But Goodreads, which is of course one of the most popular book sites in the world, advanced readers are able to put reviews on Goodreads, and I'm really proud to say that the star rating for What Big Lies You Have on Goodreads is around 4.7, and that's yeah, I'm really proud of that, because that's not just 2 or 3 so far. I think that's over 40 advanced reader reviews.
Congratulations!
So it's getting to be a significant sample size, and it's still sitting at 4.7 out of 5. And
that
if you know
awesome.
Goodreads is notoriously, infamously brutal on ratings, and it's not because they mean to be nasty or rude, but Goodreads is such a dedicated site for readers that hardcore readers who sometimes, you'll see these people that read like 100 books a year, right? 150 a year. They're reading like one every couple of days. Like, you'll find the casual reader on Goodreads too. So please, I don't want to scare anybody off. But Goodreads also has that selection of really hardcore readers and academic readers and scholastic people, and so they tend to be more discerning with their star ratings. For example, if you get a star rating on, let's say, Barnes and Noble or Amazon that is like 3 stars out of 5, on those 2 sites, it just that means like meh, it was okay. But on Goodreads, if you get a 3-star rating, it means they like the book. It's different. It's a different sort of rating scale. It's still 5 stars, but on Goodreads, it's a different scale. On Goodreads, like 1 is hated it, 2 didn't like it, 3 I liked it, 4 is I really liked it, and 5 is like I'm buying it for everybody I know. That's sort of like the Goodreads scale, which is different. So a 3 on Goodreads means I like the book. A 3 on Amazon means meh, I didn't really love it. It was just okay. So it's a bit of a different scaling system. And for What Big Lies You Have, with over 40 reviews now from advanced readers, to have a 4.7, I'm super proud of that. That's
you should be. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. And it is testimony to the fact that I think I tap into what my readers enjoy, which is that sort of slower burn, character driven, just constantly building dread.
Well, and with this one especially, and you guys will see this on the video review and then read it on the Goodreads review. It is very clear who is speaking. Like, each character has a very distinct voice, at least in my head. Like I heard them all differently. And that, I mean, that's good writing. You know, it wasn't, wait, who's talking now? So yeah, that it was, I absolutely knew who we were with.
Right. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I will say that I am also a bit of a discerning reader, by which I mean like I can be a bit critical of myself as a reader. And I think that helps me as a writer because of what you just said. That's a great example, Katie, is that,
Yeah.
you know, I too, we all have read books from first person point of view.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen these books. We've seen these books that as we're reading, we're getting a bit lost, like
Yes.
you said, right? Like who am I now? Like who am I listening to here?
Yeah,
like,
whose POV
in whose
is
head
this?
am I right now, or supposed to be?
Yeah.
And they have to go back to different chapters and say, oh yeah, okay, we're in Frank's point of view now, and
Right.
that's okay, but and it doesn't ruin a book for me, but it does sort of cause that, you know, that sort of weird lapse of like, well, we're sort of losing continuity here, which can sort of pull you out of the magic of the book. And because I'm pretty critical of things like that, and I would never criticize an author or anyone publicly, but in myself, I'm critical about it. So when I'm reading my own work, I am definitely my own worst critic, as I guess we probably all are. And I'm very careful not to try to not allow those things to happen. So if I'm reading it and I'm finding that I'm getting lost, that means I need to go back and do some edits. So I'm glad that that came across with you, that it was that you were able to very easily compartmentalize who was who.
Yeah, because you know you can't always just sit down and read a book in one go. So to be able to find your bookmark and hear that same
Right.
voice from where you left, it was awesome. It was awesome, AG.
Especially after a day of regular life taking over, right?
Yeah. But I'll let you go because I know you've got a million people pulling you in a million different directions. But I am so grateful to have you here tonight. And
Thank you.
You guys, if you don't already know, AG is our official Hearthside author for the Hallowed Hearth podcast. If you go back on this channel a few weeks, you will see me reading chapter 1 from What Big Lies You Have. So go back and rewatch that, then go and pre-order your book, your launch box, so you can get the game in the whole 9. And if you are close to Nashville, come and see us on September 19th.
Absolutely. Come on, September 19th. I mean, it'll be in an afternoon. So some people, I think, like you, Katie, are just driving in, you know, that morning, going to hang out with us for a few hours and then drive back home. Or if you want, you can just, you know, drive or fly into Nashville like Friday night, you know, grab an Airbnb in East Nashville and join us, you know, Friday night, Saturday night. And there's so much to do here. It's just a super cool place. And where I'm at in East Nashville specifically is like the creative hub of Nashville. A lot of artists, like, you know, visual artists, writers, musicians, a lot of that type of individual lives in East Nashville, which is where I am. So there's some really cool communities and neighborhoods that before and after, you know, because we're going to do the event in the afternoon. So before and after it, if you're coming to Nashville, you can absolutely easily make a weekend of it. So buy it buy the launch box, get all those goodies for $39 plus, which is sort of priceless, I think, to hang out with, you know, other people that are just like you, get a free invitation to come join me at the launch party. But I appreciate you. Thank you so much for everything. Oh, and
thank you.
I need to see this. Yes. See? There it is. Look. Perfect.
So yeah, this may actually get worn to Nashville depending on the weather that day. So
September 19th is probably going to be perfect weather. So
yeah, I'll be Rosie Tanner in person.
All right. Thank you so much. Love you guys.
Thanks, AG. Love you. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Appreciate it. Bye.
All right, guys. How exciting is that? I'm so jazzed. I can take another person. Little Red, absolutely. But in addition to that, I pulled one of my buttons off my jean jacket. Everybody is very, very sad about Dolly, and I'm super sad about Dolly too. But Tim Curry yesterday, I still have 80% of my Dr. Frank costume in my closet right now. That was one of my favorite roles to do. Karen is in the chat. Karen has seen me as Dr. Frank, and it's so fun. And I really kind of want to see if I can convince our previous location to let us do it. I don't know if we can. It might take putting together a crowdfunder to get the props and everything rebuilt, but I would love to do it again. Anyway, wow. Everything is like going on right now. Written in the Dark. What did I see just a little bit ago? We are 75% of the way to fully funded for the movie, which would be awesome. There are still lots of producer perks available. Heidi, throw the link in the chat, and I'll make sure to put it up. If you're still here, I hope you're still here. I can't really see who's here until you guys comment. But yeah, so anyway, the reason we are usually here is this book currently, The World's Greatest Short Stories. And we are so far. Look how far we are. Can you see? I can't see if you can see. We're right here. We're getting near to the end. So I think we have enough stories to get us through September, which means we need to talk about October. Spooky season is already here. I don't know if you guys know this. I don't think spooky season ever goes away. And I actually did comment that on somebody's Facebook post today. At least in my house, spooky season, it doesn't go away. You guys have seen the bookshelf. You've seen the dragons and the ravens and I got my little beastie baby, and yeah, my spooky stuff doesn't ever go away. But we need to talk about October because I don't know what to read. So if you guys have suggestions, I mean, maybe say I have this book of true Irish ghost stories, but it's not just put. Does Heidi McCack Films have its own actual website? I don't know. Sorry, stuff happening in the chat. You guys get in the chat. Say hello. I saw Kelly is here. Kelly, last Saturday was so much fun. Thank you so much for being out there with us. If you guys don't know what Saturday was, it was Dayton Porch Fest. I'm not that fancy, Katie. Yes, you are. We'll get you on. Yeah, it was Dayton Porch Fest. It rained twice, but that meant we got to do some dancing in the rain, which is always fun. And the temperature was perfect. So yeah, next year, definitely everybody come out. We had a lot of people in the yard. It was great. Todd and Willis were fantastic as always. I got some really cool pictures. Kelly got some really cool pictures. Yes, Haley. Heidi is fancy. Heidi is fancy. But anyway, tonight's story is from Jack London. And I don't know that it's kind of long, but it's kind of long. So we are definitely going to be here for a while tonight. So I hope you guys are settled in. I think the animals have settled themselves down a bit. If you can hear them, let me know, and I will try to shoo them politely out of the room. But yes, as I said, our story tonight is from Jack London. I think everybody kind of knows The Call of the Wild. This is not that. So I'm going to drop that just a touch. And we have rain and thunder. I don't know if you guys could hear that. This is just going to be a regular rainstorm. This isn't 2 weeks ago. It's just a regular rainstorm for the summer. So I hope you have a drink. If not, go grab one real quick. I'll wait. If you are here, hit the like button. If you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe. Share this video. Hype the channel if you are on your phone watching. 3 little dots below the video. I do love the animals. Below the video, I think it's kind of where the save button is, maybe. There should be a little hype channel. Hype the channel because we're getting there. We're getting lots of members to the Wolf's Den, and it's so cool. It's so cool. I love having you guys here with me every week. But we're going to get started with our story. And this was published in 1908. So it should be, sorry, we have a Leonard trying to investigate things. And I really don't want him to attack things. Sorry. Oh, I just blinded you. Hopefully he will go find a toy or something to play with. But the story tonight is called The Enemy of All the World. Leonard, please do not play with cords tonight. Thank you. It was Silas Bannerman who finally ran down that scientific wizard and archenemy of mankind, Emil Gluck. Gluck's confession, before he went to the electric chair, threw much light upon the series of mysterious events, many apparently unrelated, that so perturbed the world between the years 1933 and 1941. Sorry, guys. Did I miss? No. It's weird. First published in 1908, and he references 33 and 41. Wait. Sorry, guys. This has me all confused. We're just going to keep going. It was not until that remarkable document was made public that the world dreamed of there being any connection between the assassination of the King and Queen of Portugal and the murders of the New York City police officers. Oh, okay. While the deeds of Emil Gluck were all that was abominable, we cannot but feel, to a certain extent, pity for the unfortunate, malformed, and maltreated genius. This side of his story has never been told before, and from his confession and from the great mass of evidence and the documents and records of the time, we are able to construct a fairly accurate portrait of him and to discern the factors and pressures that molded him into the human monster he became and that drove him onward and downward along the fearful path he trod. Emil Gluck was born in Syracuse, New York in 1895. His father, Josephus Gluck, was a special policeman and night watchman who, in the year 1900, died suddenly of pneumonia. The mother, a pretty, fragile creature, who before her marriage had been a milliner, grieved herself to death over the loss of her husband. This sensitiveness of the mother was the heritage that in the boy became morbid and horrible. In 1901, the boy, Emil, then 6 years of age, went to live with his aunt, Anne Bartell. She was his mother's sister, but in her breast there was no kindly feeling for the sensitive, striking boy. Anne Bartell was a vain, shallow, and heartless woman. Also, she was cursed with poverty and burdened with a husband who was a lazy, erratic ne'er-do-well. Young Emil Gluck was not wanted, and Anne Bartell could be trusted to impress this fact sufficiently upon him. As an illustration of the treatment he received in that early formative period, the following instance is given. When he had been living in the Bartell home a little more than a year, he broke his leg. He sustained the injury through playing on the forbidden roof, as all boys have done and will continue to do so till the end of time. The leg was broken in two places between the knee and thigh. Emil, helped by his frightened playmates, managed to drag himself to the front sidewalk where he fainted. Oh my goodness. The children of the neighborhood were afraid of the hard-featured shrew who presided over the Bartell house, but summoning their resolution, they rang the bell and told Anne Bartell of the accident. She did not even look at the little lad who lay stricken on the sidewalk, but slammed the door and went back to her washtub. The time passed. A drizzle came on, and Emil Gluck, out of his faint, lay sobbing in the rain. The leg should have been set immediately. As it was, the inflammation rose rapidly and made a nasty case of it. At the end of 2 hours, the indignant women of the neighborhood protested to Anne Bartell. This time she came out and looked at the lad. Also, she kicked him in the side as he lay helpless at her feet, and she hysterically disowned him. He was not her child, she said, and recommended that the ambulance be called to take him to the city receiving hospital. Then she went back into the house. It was a woman, Elizabeth Shepstone, who came along, learned the situation, and had the boy placed on a shutter. It was she who called the doctor, and who, brushing aside Anne Bartell, had the boy carried into the house. When the doctor arrived, Anne Bartell promptly warned him that she would not pay for his services. For 2 months, little Emil lay in bed, the first month on his back without once being turned over, and he lay neglected and alone. Save for the occasional visits of the remunerated and overworked physician. He had no toys, nothing with which to beguile the long and tedious hours. No kind word was spoken to him, no soothing hand laid upon his brow, no single touch or act of loving tenderness, naught but the reproaches and harshness of Anne Bartell, and the continually reiterated information that he was not wanted. And it can well be understood, in such environment, how there was generated in the lonely, neglected boy much of the bitterness and hostility for his kind that later was to express itself in deeds so frightful as to terrify the world. It would seem strange that, from the hands of Anne Bartell, Emil Gluck should have received a college education. But the explanation is simple. Her ne'er-do-well husband, deserting her, made a strike in the Nevada goldfields and returned to her a many times millionaire. Anne Bartell hated the boy, and immediately she sent him to the Ferristown Academy, 100 miles away. Of course she did. Shy and sensitive, a lonely and misunderstood little soul, he was more lonely than ever at Ferristown. He never came home on vacation and holidays as the other boys did. Oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Oh, instead, he wandered about the deserted buildings and grounds, befriended and misunderstood by the servants and gardeners. Reading much, it is remembered, spending his days in the fields or before the fireplace with his nose poked always in the pages of some book. It was at this time that he overused his eyes and was compelled to take up the wearing of glasses, which same were so prominent in the photographs of him published in the newspapers in 1941. He was a remarkable student. Applications such as his would have taken him far, but he did not need application. A glance at a text meant mastery for him. The result was that he did an immense amount of collateral reading, acquired more in half a year than the average student in half a dozen years. In 1909, barely 14 years of age, he was ready. More than ready, the headmaster of the academy said, to enter Yale or Harvard. His juvenility prevented him from entering those universities, and so in 1909, we find him a freshman at historic Bowdoin College. In 1913, he graduated with highest honors, and immediately afterward followed Professor Bradlow to Berkeley, California. The one friend that Emil Gluck discovered in all his life was Professor Bradlow. The latter's weak lungs had led him to exchange Maine for California, the removal being facilitated by the offer of a professorship in the state university. Throughout the year, that was a tongue twister. Throughout the year 1914, Emil Gluck resided in Berkeley and took special scientific courses. Toward the end of that year, 2 deaths changed his prospects and his relations with life. The death of Professor Bradlow took from him the one friend he was ever to know, and the death of Anne Bartel left him penniless. Hating the unfortunate lad to the last, she cut him off with $100. The following year, at 20 years of age, Emil Gluck was enrolled as an instructor of chemistry in the University of California. Here, the years passed quietly. He faithfully performed the drudgery that brought him the salary, and as a student always, he took a half dozen degrees. He was, among other things, a doctor of sociology, of philosophy, and of science, though he was known to the world in later days only as Professor Gluck. He was 27 years old when he first sprang into prominence in the newspapers through the publication of his book, Sex and Progress. The book remains today a milestone in the history and philosophy of marriage. It is a heavy tome of over 700 pages, painfully careful and accurate, and startlingly original. It was a book for scientists, and not one calculated to make a stir. But Gluck, in the last chapter, using barely 3 lines for it, mentioned the hypothetical desirability of trial marriages. Ooh, progressive. At once, the newspaper seized these 3 lines, played them up yellow, as the slang was in those days, and set the whole world laughing at Emil Gluck, the bespectacled young professor of 27. Photographers snapped him. He was besieged by reporters. Women's clubs throughout the land passed resolutions condemning him and his immoral theories. And on the floor of the California Assembly, while discussing the state appropriation to the university, a motion demanding the expulsion of Gluck was made under threat of withholding the appropriation. Of course, none of his persecutors had read the book. Of course not. The twisted newspaper version of only 3 lines of it was enough for them. Here began Emil Gluck's hatred for newspapermen. By them, his serious and intrinsically valuable work of 6 years had been made a laughingstock and a notoriety. To his dying day, and to their everlasting regret, He never forgave them. It was the newspapers that were responsible for the next disaster that befell him. For the 5 years following the publication of his book, he had remained silent. And silence for a lonely man is not good. One can conjecture sympathetically the awful solitude of Emil Gluck in that populous university, for he was without friends and without sympathy. His only recourse was books, and he went on reading and studying enormously. But in 1927, he accepted an invitation to appear before the Human Interest Society of Emeryville. He did not trust himself to speak, and as we write, we have before us a copy of his learned paper. It is sober, scholarly, and scientific, and it must be also added conservative. But in one place he dealt with, and I quote his words, the industrial and social revolution that is taking place in society. A reporter present seized upon the word revolution, divorced it from the rest, and wrote a garbled account that made Emil Gluck appear an anarchist. At once, Professor Gluck, anarchist, flamed over the wires and was appropriately featured in all of the newspapers in the land. He had attempted to rely on the, to, oh, excuse me. He had attempted to reply to the previous newspaper attack, but now he remained silent. Bitterness had already corroded his soul. The university faculty appealed to him to defend himself, but he sullenly declined, even refusing to enter in defense a copy of his paper to save himself from expulsion. He refused to resign and was discharged from the university faculty. It must be added that political pressure had been put upon the university regents and the president. Persecuted, maligned, and misunderstood, the forlorn and lonely man made no attempt at retaliation. All his life he had been sinned against, and all his life he had sinned against no one. But his cup of bitterness was not yet full to overflowing. Having lost his position and being without any income, he had to find work. His first place was at the Union Iron Works in San Francisco, where he proved a most able draftsman. It was here that he obtained his first-hand knowledge of battleships and their construction. But the reporters discovered him and featured him in his new vocation. He immediately resigned and found another place, but after the reporters had driven him away from a half a dozen positions, he steeled himself to brazen out the newspaper persecution. This occurred when he started his electroplating establishment in Oakland on Telegraph Avenue. It was a small shop, employing 3 men and 2 boys. Gluck himself worked long hours. Night after night, as policeman Carew testified on the stand, he did not leave the shop till 1 or 2 in the morning. It was during this period that he perfected the improved ignition device for gas engines, the royalties from which ultimately made him wealthy. Bitter and wealthy. Bad combination. He started his electroplating establishment early in the spring of 1928, and it was in the same year that he formed the disastrous love attachment for Irene Tackley. Now, it is not to be imagined that an extraordinary creature such as Emil Gluck would be any other than an extraordinary lover. In addition to his genius, his loneliness, and his morbidness, it must be taken into consideration that he knew nothing about women. Whatever tides of desire flooded his being, he was unschooled in the conventional expression of them, while his excessive timidity was bound to make his lovemaking unusual. Irene Tackley was a rather pretty young woman, but shallow and lightheaded. At the time, she worked in a small candy store across the street from Gluck's shop. He used to come in and drink ice cream sodas and lemon squashes and stare at her. It seemed the girl did not care for him and merely played with him. He was queer, she said, and at another time she called him a crank when describing how he sat at the counter and peered at her through his spectacles, blushing and stammering when she took notice of him, and often leaving the shop in precipitate confusion. Gluck made her the most amazing presents: a silver tea service, a diamond ring, a set of furs, opera glasses, a ponderous history of the world in many volumes, and a motorcycle all silver plated in his own shop. Enters now the girl's lover, putting his foot down, showing great anger, compelling her to return Gluck's strange assortment of presents. This man, William Sherborne, was a gross and stolid creature, a heavy-jawed man of the working class who had become a successful building contractor in a small way. Gluck did not understand. He tried to get an explanation, attempting to speak with the girl when she went home from work in the evening. She complained to Sherborne, and one night he gave Gluck a beating. It was a very severe beating, for it is on the records of the Red Cross Emergency Hospital that Gluck was treated there that night and was unable to leave the hospital for a week. Oh, dang. Still, Gluck did not understand. He continued to seek an explanation from the girl. In fear of Sherborne, he applied to the chief of police for permission to carry a revolver, which permission was refused. The newspapers, as usual, playing it up sensationally, of course. Oh, no. Okay. Then came the murder of Irene Tackling, 6 days before her contemplated marriage with Sherborne. It was on a Saturday night. She had worked late in the candy store, departing after 11 o'clock with her week's wages in her purse. She rode on a San Pablo Avenue surface car to 34th Street, where she alighted and started to walk the 3 blocks to her home. That was the last scene of her alive. Next morning, she was found, strangled, in a vacant lot. Emil Gluck was immediately arrested. Nothing that he could do could save him. He was convicted, not merely on circumstantial evidence, but on evidence cooked up by the Oakland police. There is no discussion but that a large portion of the evidence was manufactured. The testimony of Captain Sheehan was the sheerest perjury, and being proved long afterwards that on the night in question, he had not only not been in the vicinity of the murder, but that he had been out of the city in a resort on the San Leandro Road. The unfortunate Gluck received life imprisonment in San Quentin, while the newspapers and the public held that it was a miscarriage of justice, that the death penalty should have been visited upon him. People keep messing. Poke the bear. Poke the bear. This bear is not going to be okay. Gluck entered San Quentin prison on April 17th, 1929. He was then 34 years of age. And for 3 years and a half, much of the time in solitary confinement, he was left to meditate upon the injustice of man. It was during that period that his bitterness corroded home. It was during this period that his bitterness corroded home, and he became a hater of all his kind. 3 other things he did during the same period. He wrote his famous treatise, Human Morals, his remarkable brochure, The Criminal Sane, and he worked out his awful and monstrous scheme of revenge. It was an episode that had occurred in his electroplating establishment. Hold on. So sorry. Oh, that is a comma. Okay. It was an episode that had occurred in his electroplating establishment that suggested to him his unique weapon of revenge. As stated in his confession, he worked every detail out theoretically during his imprisonment and was able, his release, immediately to embark on his career. I need glasses, y'all. Career of vengeance. His release was sensational. Also, it was miserably and criminally delayed by the soulless legal red tape then in vogue. On the night of February 1st, 1932, Tim Haswell, a holdup man, was shot during an attempted robbery by a citizen of Piedmont Heights. Tim Haswell lingered 3 days, during which time he not only confessed to the murder of Irene Tackley, but furnished conclusive proofs of the same. Oh, I was trying to figure out how he got out early. Okay. Bert Daniker, a convict dying of consumption in Folsom Prison, was implicated as accessory, and his confession followed. Okay, so lots of people clearing Emil, but it's a little too late, I think. I think. It is inconceivable to us of today, the bungling, dilatory processes of justice a generation ago. Emil Gluck was proved in February to be an innocent man, yet he was not released until the following October. For 8 months, a greatly wronged man, he was compelled to undergo his unmerited punishment. This was not conducive to sweetness and light, and we can all well imagine how he ate his soul with bitterness during those dreary 8 months. Yeah. He came back to the world in the fall of 1932. As usual, a feature topic in all the newspapers. The papers, instead of expressing heartfelt regret, continued their old sensational persecution. One paper did more. The San Francisco Intelligencer. John Hartwell, its editor, elaborated an ingenious theory that got around the confessions of the two criminals and went on to show that Gluck was responsible, after all, for the murder of Irene Tackley. Hartwell died, and Sherborne died too, while policeman Phillips was shot in the leg and discharged from the Oakland police force. The murder of Hartwell was long a mystery. He was alone in his editorial office at the time. The reports of the revolver were heard by the office boy, who rushed in to find Hartwell expiring. Hey, Velma, can you just lay down? Thank you. The grass is tickling her really bad outside. It's making her itch. I need to know. Sorry, back to the story. What puzzled the police was the fact not merely that he had been shot with his own revolver, but that the revolver had been exploded in the drawer of his desk. The bullets had torn through the front of the drawer and entered his body. So he didn't shoot himself, his gun shot him. The police scouted the theory of suicide. Murder was dismissed as absurd, and the blame was thrown upon the Eureka Smokeless Cartridge Company. Spontaneous explosion was the police explanation, and the chemists of the Cartridge Company were well bullied at the inquest. But what the police did not know... Thank you. Hi. But what the police did not know was that across the street in the Mercer building, room 633, rented by Emil Gluck, had been occupied by Emil Gluck at the very moment Hartwell's revolver so mysteriously exploded. At the time, no connection was made between Hartwell's death and the death of William Sherborne. Sherborne had continued to live in the home he had built for Irene Tackley, and one In January 1933, he was found dead. Suicide was the verdict of the coroner's inquest, for he'd been shot by his own revolver. The curious thing that happened that night was the shooting of policeman Phillips on the sidewalk in front of Sherborne's house. The policeman crawled to a police telephone on the corner and rang up for an ambulance. He claimed that someone had shot him from behind in the leg. Oh, the leg in question was so badly shattered by three .38 caliber bullets that amputation was necessary. But when the police discovered that the damage had been done by his own revolver, a great laugh went up, and he was charged with having been drunk. Oh no. In spite of his denial of having touched a drop and of his persistent assertion that the revolver had been in his hip pocket and that he had not laid a finger to it, he was discharged from the force. Emil Gluck's confession, 6 years later, cleared the unfortunate policeman of disgrace, and he is alive today and in good health, the recipient of a handsome pension from the city. I'll bet. Emil Gluck, having disposed of his immediate enemies, now sought a wider field. Though his enmity for newspaper men and for the police remained always active. The royalties on his ignition device for gasoline engines had mounted up while he lay in prison, and year by year the earning power of his invention increased. He was independent, able to travel wherever he willed over the earth and to glut his monstrous appetite for revenge. He had become a monomaniac and an anarchist, not a philosophical anarchist merely, but a violent anarchist. Perhaps the word is misused, and he is better described as a nihilist or an annihilist. It is known that he affiliated with none of the groups of terrorists. He operated wholly alone, but he created 1,000-fold more terror and achieved 1,000-fold more destruction than all the terrorist groups added together. He signalized his departure from California by blowing up Fort Mason. In his confession, he spoke of it as a little experiment. He was merely trying his hand. For 8 years, he wandered over the earth, a mysterious terror, destroying property to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars and destroying countless lives. One good result of his awful deeds was the destruction he wrought among the terrorists themselves. Every time he did anything, the terrorists in the vicinity were gathered in by the every time he did anything, the terrorists in the vicinity were gathered in by the police dragnet, and many of them were executed. Ooh. 17 were executed at Rome alone, following the assassination of the Italian king. Oh my goodness. Okay. Perhaps the most world-amazing achievement of his was the assassination of the King and Queen of Portugal. It was their wedding day. All possible precautions had been taken against the terrorists, and the way from the cathedral through Lisbon streets was double banked with troops, while a squad of 200 mounted troopers surrounded the carriage. Suddenly, the amazing thing happened. The automatic rifles of the troopers began to go off, as well as the rifles in the immediate vicinity of the double-banked infantry. In the excitement, the muzzles of the exploding rifles were turned in all directions. The slaughter was terrible. Horses, troops, spectators, and the king and queen were riddled with bullets. To complicate the affair, in different parts of the crowd behind the foot soldiers, 2 terrorists had bombs explode on their persons. These bombs they had intended to throw if they got the opportunity. But who was to know this? This frightful havoc wrought by the bursting bombs, but added to the confusion, was considered part of the general attack. One puzzling thing that could not be explained away was the conduct of the troopers with their exploding rifles. It seemed impossible that they should be in on the plot, yet there were the hundreds of their flying bullets had their flying bullets had slain, including the king and queen. On the other hand, more baffling than ever was the fact that 70% of the troopers themselves had been killed or wounded. Some explained this on the ground that the loyal foot soldiers, witnessing the attack on the royal carriage, had opened fire on the traitors. Yet not one bit of evidence to verify this could be drawn from the survivors, though many were put to the torture. They contended stubbornly that they had not discharged their rifles at all, but that their rifles had discharged themselves. They were laughed at by the chemists, who held that while it was just barely probable that a single cartridge charged with a new smokeless powder might spontaneously explode, it was beyond all probability and possibility for all the cartridges in a given area so charged spontaneously to explode. Very true. There's no way. So, how did he do it? And so, in the end, no explanation of the amazing occurrence was reached. The general opinion of the rest of the world was that the whole affair was a blind panic of the feverish Latins, precipitated, if it was true, by the bursting of 2 terrorist bombs. And in this connection was recalled the laughable encounter of long years before between the Russian fleet and the English fishing boats. And Emil Gluck chuckled and went his way. He knew. But how was the world to know? He had stumbled upon the street in his old electroplating shop on Telegraph Avenue in the city of Oakland. It happened, at that time, that a wireless telegraph station was established by the Thurston Power Company close to his shop. Oh, in a short time, his electroplating vat was put out of order. The vat wiring had many bad joints, and on investigation, Gluck discovered minute welds at the joints in the wiring. These, by lowering the resistance, had caused an excessive current to pass through the solution, boiling it and spoiling the work. What had caused the welds? Was the question in Gluck's mind. His reasoning was simple. Before the establishment of the wireless station, the vat had worked well. Not until after the establishment of the wireless station had the vat been ruined. Therefore, the wireless station was the cause. But how? He quickly answered the question. If an electric discharge was capable of operating a coherer across 3,000 miles of ocean, then certainly the electrical discharges from the wireless station 400 feet away could produce coherer effects on the bad joints in the vat wiring. Gluck thought no more about it at the time. He merely rewired his vat and went on electroplating. But afterwards, in prison, he remembered the incident. And like a flash, there came into his mind the full significance of it. He saw it in the silent, secret weapon with which to revenge himself of the world. His great discovery, which died with him, was control over the direction and scope of the electric discharge. At the time, this was the unsolved problem of wireless telegraphy. I don't know why I can't read tonight. It's only what I'm doing every Wednesday. I love you guys. I'm so sorry. At the time, this was the unsolved problem of wireless telegraphy, and it still is today. But Emil Gluck, in his prison cell, mastered it. And when he was released, he applied it. It was fairly simple, given the directing power that was his, to introduce a spark into the power magazines of a fort, a battleship, or a revolver. And not alone could he thus explode powder at a distance, but he could ignite conflagrations. The Great Boston Fire was started by him, quite by accident, however, as he stated in his confession, adding that it was a pleasing accident and that he'd never had any reason to regret it. It was Emil Gluck that caused the Great German-American War, with the loss of 800,000 lives and the consumption of almost incalculable treasure. It will be remembered that in 1939, because of the Picard accident, strained relations existed between the two countries. Germany, though aggrieved, was not anxious for war, and as a peace token sent the Crown Prince and 7 battleships on a friendly visit to the United States. On the night of February 15th, the 7 warships lay at anchor in the Hudson opposite New York City. And on that night, Emil Gluck, alone with all his apparatus on board, was out in a launch. This launch, it was afterwards proved, was bought by him from the Ross Turner Company, while much of the apparatus he used that night had been purchased from the Columbia Electric Works. But this was not known at the time. All that was known was that the 7 battleships blew up, one after another at regular 4-minute intervals. 90% of the crews and officers, along with the Crown Prince, perished. Many years before, the American battleship Maine had been blown up in the harbor of Havana, and war with Spain had immediately followed. Now, there has always existed a reasonable doubt as to whether the explosion was due to conspiracy or accident. But accident could not explain the blowing up of the 7 battleships on the Hudson at 4-minute intervals. Germany believed that it had been done by a submarine and immediately declared war. It was 6 months after Gluck's confession that she returned to the Philippines and Hawaii. It was 6 months after Gluck's confession that Germany returned the Philippines and Hawaii to the United States. In the meanwhile, Emil Gluck, the malevolent wizard and arch-hater, traveled his whirlwind path of destruction. He left no traces. Scientifically thorough, he always cleaned up after himself. His method was to rent a room or a house and secretly to install his apparatus. Which apparatus, by the way, he so perfected and simplified that it occupied little space. After he had accomplished his purpose, he carefully removed the apparatus. He bade fair to live out a long life of horrible crime. The epidemic of shooting of New York City policemen was a remarkable affair. It became one of the horror mysteries of the time. In 2 short weeks, over 100 policemen were shot in the legs by their own revolvers. Inspector Jones did not solve the mystery, but it was his idea that finally outwitted Gluck. On his recommendation, the policemen ceased carrying revolvers and no more accidental shootings occurred. It was in the early spring of 1940 that Gluck destroyed the Mare Island Navy Yard. From a room in Vallejo, he sent his electrical discharges across the Vallejo Straits to Mare Island. He first played his flashes on the battleship Maryland. She lay at the dock of one of the mine magazines. On her forward deck, on a huge temporary platform of timbers, were disposed over 100 mines. These mines were for the defense of the Golden Gate. Any one of these mines was capable of destroying a dozen battleships, and there were over 100 mines. The destruction was terrific, but it was only Gluck's overture. He played his flashes down the Mare Island shore, blowing up 5 torpedo boats, the torpedo station, and the great magazine in the eastern end of the island. Returning westward again, and scooping in occasional isolated magazines on the high ground back from the shore, he blew up 3 cruisers on the battleships Oregon, Delaware, New Hampshire, and Florida. The latter had just gone into dry dock, and the magnificent dry dock was destroyed along with her. It was a frightful catastrophe, and a shiver of horror passed through the land. But it was nothing to what was to follow. In the late fall of that year, Emil Gluck made a clean sweep of the Atlantic seaboard from Maine to Florida. Nothing escaped. Forts, mines, coast defenses of all sorts, torpedo stations, magazines, everything went up. 3 months afterwards, in midwinter, he smote the north shore of the Mediterranean from Gibraltar to Greece in the same stupefying manner. A wail went up from the nations. It was clear that human agency was behind all this destruction, and it was equally clear through Emil Gluck's impartiality that the destruction was not the work of any particular nation. One thing was patent, namely that whoever was human behind it all, that human was a menace to the world. No nation was safe. There was no defense against this unknown and all-powerful foe. Warfare was futile. Nay, not merely futile, but itself the very essence of the peril. For a 12 month, the manufacture of powder ceased, and all soldiers and sailors were withdrawn. Were withdrawn from the fortification and war vessels. And even a world disarmament was seriously considered at the Convention of Powers held at The Hague at that time. And then Silas Bannerman, a secret agent of the United States, leaped into world fame by arresting Emil Gluck. At first, Bannerman was laughed at, but he had prepared his case well, and in a few weeks, the most skeptical were convinced of Emil Gluck's guilt. The one thing, however, that Silas Bannerman never succeeded in explaining, even to his own satisfaction, was how first he came to connect Gluck with the atrocious crimes. It is true, Bannerman was in Vallejo on secret government business at the time of the destruction of Mare Island, and it is true that on the streets of Vallejo, Emil Gluck was pointed out to him as a queer crank, but no impression was made at the time. It was not until afterward, when on a vacation in the Rocky Mountains and when reading the first published reports of the destruction along the Atlantic coast, that suddenly Bannerman thought of Emil Gluck. And on the instant, there flashed into his mind the connection between Gluck and the destruction. It was only a hypothesis, but it was sufficient. The great thing was the conception of the hypothesis. In itself, an act of unconscious unconscious cerebration. A thing as unaccountable as the flashing, for instance, into Newton's mind of the principle of gravitation. The rest was easy. Where was Gluck at the time of the destruction along the Atlantic seaboard? Was the question that formed in Bannerman's mind. By his own request, he was put upon the case. In no time, he ascertained that Gluck himself had been up and down the Atlantic coast in the late fall of 1940. Also, he ascertained that Gluck had been in New York City. Oh my gosh, you guys, I am so sorry. I don't know why I'm so yawny tonight. Also, he ascertained that Gluck had been in New York City during the epidemic of the shooting of police officers. And where was Gluck now? was Bannerman's next query. And as if in answer came the wholesale destruction along the Mediterranean. Gluck had sailed for Europe a month before. Bannerman knew that. It was not necessary for Bannerman to go to Europe. By means of cable messages and the cooperation of the European Secret Services, he traced Gluck's course along the Mediterranean and found that in every instance it coincided with the blowing up of coast defenses and ships. Also, he learned that Gluck had just sailed on the Green Star liner Plutonic for the United States. The case was complete in Bannerman's mind, though in the interval of waiting, he worked up the details. In this, he was ably assisted by George Brown, an operator employed by Wood's Systems of Wireless Telegraphy. When the Plutonic arrived off Sandy Hook, she was boarded by Bannerman from a government tug, and Emil Gluck was made a prisoner. The trial and the confession followed. In the confession, Gluck professed regret only for one thing, namely, that he had taken his time. As he said, had he dreamed that he was ever to be discovered, he would have worked more rapidly and accomplished 1,000 times the destruction he did. His secret died with him, though it is now known that the French government managed to get access to him and offered him 1 billion francs for his invention, wherewith he was able to direct and closely to confine electrical discharges. What? Was Gluck's reply. To sell to you that which would enable you to enslave and maltreat suffering humanity? And though the war departments of the nations have continued to experiment in their secret laboratories, they have so far failed to light upon the slightest trace of the secret. Emil Gluck was executed on December 4th, 1941, and so died, at the age of 46, one of the world's most unfortunate geniuses, a man of tremendous intellect, but whose mighty powers, instead of making toward good, were so twisted and warped that he became the most amazing of criminals. That was different for us. That read very much more like news. A little true crimey. I like true crime too. So with that, we are going to start winding it down for the night. It's starting to get sleep time over here, obviously. I haven't eaten supper yet, so I should probably do that. But thank you guys so much for being with me tonight. AG, if you've jumped back in, thank you so, so much for letting me be a part of the Advanced Readers Club and for the invite. So you get the launch box and be part of the VIP launch. You guys don't forget to check out agmock.square.site if you want to get your launch box, or you can just go to agmock.com. Get your launch box. Come hang out with us. It's going to be super, super fun. Yeah, if the weather's cool, I'll wear my red jumper that matches Rosie's. Go back and rewatch the original video where we read chapter 1 of What Big Lies You Have, and hang out with me tomorrow over on the Hearth, the Hallowed Hearth podcast on YouTube as well. Yeah, I'm going to get off of here, but thank you guys so much. I will see you next week.